imports and exports can be compared to how well we manage a business. Balancing how much profits we make and how much we spend can be a challenge if our personal expenses outweigh our gains. Similarly, a country's imports and exports tell a story on how it is performing on a global scale. While we are a far cry from being self-sufficient, in February, Belize managed its imports and exports a little better than February of 2024. We imported 4% fewer goods, a difference of $9.1 million, bringing the total down from $227.5 million. However, Diana Castillo, the Director General of the Statistical Institute of Belize, pointed out that this doesn't necessarily mean imports were lower this February. Instead, last year's figures were unusually high due to significant purchases of large industrial equipment and electric buses.
What we saw last year, in the earlier months of last year, was the importation of some major equipment, some of it industrial equipment. So these are for major industries and other types of vehicles, including electric buses, which is something that was newly introduced to the city last year.
This graph, provided by SIB, shows Belize's imports and exports for the month of February over the past 5 years. It shows that our imports have been on a steady increase. Senior advisor with the Ministry of Agriculture, Hugh O'Brien, says regardless of how our imports perform in a single month, our growing population will continue to drive those figures up.
In terms of our trying to reduce our, or not even say the word reduce, because as our population grow, we will find that our importation will continue to grow because we are, as an individual or as a country, we buy more things from abroad and we don't produce these things here.
O'Brien went on to explain that Belize uses a lot of the items that we do not produce locally, such as vehicle parts and cell phones.
But we are not producing vehicle parts, we are not producing cars, we are not producing electronic equipment, we are not producing lots of the stuff that that people consume in the country. When I say consume, not consume from a food perspective, but that we use, your watches, your cell phones, your clothing, your chain, your footwear. And
Belize's exports for February reached $22.3 million, marking a 12.3% increase compared to February of 2024. Diana Castillo highlighted the factors that contributed to this spike.
We saw earnings doubling from 3 million or so to over 6 million in the first 2 months of this year. This is increased exports of things like lobsters, conch, lobster tails. We also saw a notable increase in exports of sugar.
Rayan Rosado, a policy analyst with the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry, spends his days analyzing trade data from the SIB. He noted that sometimes the higher revenues we see aren't just from exporting more goods, but also from fetching better prices on a global market.
Citrus exports from 2023 to 2024 were 0.44 million in 2023, when I think total export value of that was 16 million. But in 2024, the total export value was 0.45 million gallons, and total export value was 30 million for the entire year. So that just goes to show how much commodity prices can affect the value of imports, even though production hasn't really gone up or gone down.
Rosado explained that similarly, Belize's import bill is largely impacted by external markets.
When global food prices are skyrocketing, a great example like during the Ukraine thing, when prices just saw a huge increase, our food bill, the food prices that we were paying also went up significantly just across the board.
Belize's economy is rooted in agriculture, with most of our exports being farm produce. Despite this, we still bring in a lot of processed meats from abroad. But there's good news. Thanks to recent investments in 2 major poultry processing plants, Belizeans can now buy locally produced poultry meats. Plus, we've achieved self-sufficiency in soybean concentrate, which is a key ingredient in animal feed. It's a great step forward for our local agriculture.
Belize. So the two main poultry processing plants in Belize have both made significant investments in the last, actually both of them in 2024, and they have moved towards producing now poultry, chicken bologna, chicken ham, turkey ham, and so you have different types of chicken sausages that they have on the market. And for the last 3 years, Belize has been self-sufficient in soybean, that we no longer import soybean concentrate from abroad, and that is now being processed locally into animal feed. So,
while these investments are not expected to make a significant dent in our overall imports bill, they are expected to show reductions in these categories. For Belize to transition from a country with a trade deficit to a country with a trade surplus, we need a complete shift in our mindset. O'Brien believes it has to do with how we are educated.
We are not cultured, educated, trained, even to be scientists. We are trained to be employees, we are trained to be tour guides and so forth now, and we are trained to offer, to do some farming. But we do not have any institution in Belize. We do not have any polytechnic institution. They're not even helping in terms of how best to make the concrete better, in terms of building homes. So with that kind of background, there has to be a major mindset shift that begins with creating an institution within Belize, a model institution that starts to produce.
Diana Castillo said that the SIB will begin to do more in-depth analysis this year, particularly on what drives consumer confidence, which is an indicator of how people feel about their spending power. Notably, on a scale of 1 to 100, in February, consumer confidence was below 50. Reporting for News 5, I'm Marion Addy.